Well, let's get some more analysis this side. And of course, some ongoing discussion as the day commences. We are outside of the plenary. We are in the media village. And of course, the discussions happening inside plenary right now closed off from the media. So we wait in desperate anticipation to hear what decisions the African National Congress has made with regards to who they choose as their top 7. And of course, we've been running those visuals on the screen of who some of the contenders really are. And we're going to unpack and really look at some of their biographies, what they could offer the party, who the front runners are as well. But let's also look at some of the recent events coming out of this morning. Although very little activity coming out of Nasrec, it seems on the sidelines of Nasrec quite a lot, with the news coming out of Limpopo's PEC, certainly, and of course even the interview that we saw Mpolisi having a little bit earlier with leader of the JG Zuma Foundation, Mzwanele Manyi. And for that, I am joined in studio here by political analyst Dr. I Levy Ndou. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Good morning to you. Good morning to the viewers at home.
Before anything, are you surprised by the pace of things here?
Oh, well, I'm not surprised at all. This is exactly what we expected. When you have a conference of this magnitude, looking at the numbers, looking at the logistical arrangements, you would actually get what we're getting. But what I do know is that from the media village, delegates, and all the people involved, I could see that most people seem to be exhausted, but there is that anxiety to say we're going to go through until the last minute of the conference. Well,
we want to see who the leadership of the African National Congress is going to be, because that might very well be the leadership of the country in 2024. So this is a very important conference, and I think the country and even the world watching what happens. We'll get into some of the analysis of the individuals involved, but how do you rate the quality of the nominations for the top 7 of the African National Congress? Anything that you think the ANC did particularly well, or real concerns for you?
Well, it's just an expression of the branches of the ANC, regions and provinces. And after the nominations, of course, one expected what we're actually hearing around all the time, to say this one appears to be making it, that one appears to not to be making it. But of importance for me was the process that took place last night, early this morning, when they had to conclude on the leadership. You'll recall that there were concerns from other quarters that some individuals felt that the nomination process appears to have robbed them or not having done properly. And then when the floor was opened, it became clear that an expression of the branches through the nomination process was actually a reflection of what we actually saw yesterday. Individuals' names will be raised, and when you don't meet a threshold, it became the exact expression of what happened through the nomination process.
Surprises for you of who did not meet the threshold. I think there probably was some sort of explanation that Lindiwe Sisulu would do particularly well last night. Not meeting the threshold. It was interesting because there was the call for her nomination. She accepted the nomination. And then there was a call for her to be seconded. And there was great silence in the room.
Well, I think it confirms what the branches said in the nomination process, number one. Number two, it also confirms that if there was a view that maybe something wrong happened with the Electoral Commission, the branches were actually going to prove that wrong right here. And unfortunately, it came out exactly as it happened during the nomination process. And I think there is an emphasis in the ANC of embracing democracy and also living democracy by accepting democratic processes of the ANC. And I think Lindiwe Sisulu should not feel that she has been isolated or not loved by the ANC. It's an expression of leadership by the branches. And I think as a leader of the ANC, she actually has to accept that as an expression of the preference of leadership by the branches of the ANC.
But does it symbolize, though, that this era of the African National Congress is less concerned with the heavy hitter names and the big historical names, the name Sisulu in and of itself not emoting what it used to with the party?
Well, I don't think so. I think what the branches have actually said is that we know our leaders. We know what they are capable of doing. We know what they've done to the movement. And maybe they're actually saying, thank you very much for serving the movement for quite some time. Maybe it is time to give others a chance to lead. There has been a concern generally in the South African society and within the ANC that the ANC appears to be led mainly by older people. And maybe it's also part of the process of saying we're starting to isolate some of the older people within the leadership positions. But we don't have to take anything away from Lindiwe Sisulu, the contribution, the sacrifices that she has made. Right.
Let's go back to some of the points that were made there by Mr. Shilowa in conversation with Mzwanele, our very own political editor, particularly looking at the events coming out of the Limpopo PEC, where you've got this recording apparently by Florence Radzilane, deputy chair of the PEC in Limpopo, saying that there's a change in the direction that we're taking and that the instruction now is that we vote for Dr. Zweli Mkhize as president. The party coming out in Limpopo has said, no, there has been no such instruction. What does that say about the wranglings and the lobbying that's actually going on here?
Maybe we need to acknowledge the fact that at the conference of this nature, lobbying is going to continue until the last person votes.
Even after the branches have made their decisions?
Unfortunately, that is the case, and that is what the ANC has allowed to happen. There has been a nomination process which started and ended, and now there is a lobbying process towards election. And I know that most people would say maybe it should have come to an end after the nomination exercise. Unfortunately, the processes of the ANC says we nominate and then we still go for elections. And that is why there was a chance to open up nominations from the floor, meaning that the process is continuous. But what then might become a problem, and I think it's important that we deal with this one, is that people that are coming to the conference are delegates of branches. And branches have already made their expression.
Exactly.
So it's about what you see at conference and what you took from your branch. What you took from your branch is to elect in a particular way, but you can still be persuaded. And there also appears a sense that when provincial leaders makes an expression about leadership, we tend to get convinced that it is an expression that will be embraced by everybody who is a delegate of that province. And that does not appear to be correct, because it's going to be an individual, a ballot paper, and a small cubicle. And that person is actually going to make a decision right there.
Oh, that's unfortunate, because it sends quite a message to the branches. I want to look at another issue before I let you go. In this one, you were watching as well as you came into the studio here, Dr. Ndou. That discussion there, Mzwanele Manyi essentially saying that they're not backing down, that it is when on the 19th of January at 9:30 in the morning, he says President Cyril Ramaphosa must present himself to the court and that they're proceeding with their private prosecution, saying that they've gone as far as to go and speak to the state prosecutor, the NPA, and said, do your job, you're not doing enough. And of course, Vincent Magunya haven't come out and said, well, retract all of that, serving legal papers. And I know that you can't necessarily speak to the legal elements of it, but does it have any bearing on what goes on inside this plenary?
I think it does. It does, in the sense that it has become clear that the preference of former President Jacob Zuma in relation to leadership is no. The statements that former President Zuma has been making towards the current President Ramaphosa are no. So obviously, if one has to relate that to the conference, it might also be seen as a strategy or a way to distract some of the delegates to vote in a particular manner. Maybe it also takes us back to the manner in which former President Zuma came to the conference during the first day.
Yes, quite an arrival.
Some would say it was quite innocent. It was not, in my view. It was actually meant to test the grounds, to make a statement that I'm here. Let's have a feel in the conference. But in the main...
Was it successful? Well, let me ask you that. Was it successful for President?
In terms of being destructive, yes. Because some of the delegates from KwaZulu-Natal behaved in that manner until they're to be stopped. So if the intention was to be destructive, it actually worked. But at the end of the day, the situation had to be calmed down.
Yeah, and the votes need to go on nonetheless. Well, Dr. I Levy Ndou, thank you so much for giving us your time. I know that you'll be with us as well throughout the day, so we'll be getting more analysis from him.